Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Jaquan,
I'm Jasmine.
and welcome to the Film Spill.
So today, guys, we're going to be reviewing the series 7 Seconds. This is a crime series, and here's the summary. When 15-year-old black cyclist Brenton Butler dies in a hit-and-run accident with a white police officer behind the wheel of the vehicle, Jersey City explodes with racial tension. This crime drama explores the aftermath of the accident, which includes an attempted cover-up by the police department in a volatile trial.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of those series that, of course, being a black man in America, it was very, very difficult to see, mainly because this series definitely highlighted things that are going on in our country in real life. So it was very hard to kind of give it a rating. I'm gonna play it safe and just say 4. So let's get into my pros and my cons. My pros being very, very short. It was a true story about the things that black people endure. That was my very first pro and my only pro. Because a lot of this, once again, it stems from things that are happening today. And when you kind of get into the nitty gritty of each episode, it's kind of hard to dissect. So let's get into the cons, which are all personal cons, by the way. The first one being, once again, like I stated before, it's just very hard watching these type of stories because they're very similar to things that are happening in real life. When you talk about, people like George Floyd, you talk about, kids like Trayvon Martin. It's very hard. The next con being, I just didn't like how Latrice, which is Brenton's mother, was lying to the father about her son's whereabouts in the very, very beginning. Now, the reason why I didn't like that part is because to me, I witnessed those type of things growing up, not necessarily with my own mother, but um, it could be family members, it could be friends, families, where it's basically like, the mother is trying to protect the son from the dad because the dad is overprotective, or, maybe he's just someone who just doesn't physically get it. So what ends up happening is the mother is like, I'm gonna just allow certain things to happen, because I have it under control. But then when things like this happen, it's just like there's no united front because once again, it's like we supposed to be able to know what's happening to our children together. But I also don't necessarily just fault the mom too because, the dad, he was also someone who was kind of just like out of sight, out of mind, especially when they was talking about how, he would go to work and, he just basically was focusing on not the right things at the right time. So both of them had issues that I felt like they could have worked on. But, it all came to a head, especially in this series. The next con being I didn't like the officers that got off at the end, which is probably the biggest con, right? Even though, once again, like I said, this is similar things that happen in real life, right? Where it's like officers commit murders, they kill people, and then no jail time. Like Jablonski was able to get 364 days, which is weird. Not even a full year. But once again, you had his superiors. So you had, Felix. You had, D'Angelo. You had these cops that was trying to do all these cover ups that was actually killing people. They literally got no time. And so it was just once again things that are happening nowadays. So no surprise. The next con being, I didn't like how Marie, right? So Jablonski's wife wanted him to continue with the cover up because he promised her a good life. It's like this boy's life doesn't even matter. She's over here concerned about herself, and she's mad at him because he's guilty. He wants to do the right thing, and she's like, no, like you let's keep this thing going. You promised me a good life. Don't even care this boy is dead. Just didn't like that. I didn't like how they kept trying to imply Britain was in a gang, which he wasn't. It was like they just kept trying to focus on that. The next one being, I didn't like how the marriage of the Butlers fell apart. It was like, damn, like, they literally couldn't even keep the family together. And I get it when crises and things like this happen, it's very hard sometimes for some couples to stick together, especially when you have couples who were just in it for the children. But for this one, when it started off, it looked like a united family other than the lies and stuff. But then it was just like, it just immediately just fell apart. So to me, just a hard thing to watch because it's like you watch your child die now and they're not even there for each other. So once again, just difficult. So this was probably one of the biggest cons outside of the cops getting off. So I didn't like how this story was created by a Jewish woman and a Filipino woman, right? Who can never understand the pain that we feel seeing the same stories all over again, right? Where there's no wins for black people. And I seen this quote that said something, and it also quoted Jordan Peele. So I saw this quote that said, the writers are not truly connected to the pain of what they're creating. They can write sympathetic storylines for the white cops who take black lives and spend time showing both sides. I feel like it's callous because what we need less of is finding out how the Pete Jablonskis became monsters. What we need more of is finding out how the Latrice Butlers triumph over their tragedies. So, and then when they quoted Jordan Peele, they was talking about Get Out when it was just like, when they had that alternate ending scene when Daniel basically ends up getting caught by the police. Instead, he ended up having the one where he gets away. So once again, I feel like the reason why that part was very, very important for me because it's like you have these other races trying to tell our stories and not even give us these wins. Where it's like you want to talk about our pain, but you're not even trying to. And I feel like that just gives some level of justice. You know how many series and movies I watch when I'm like, at the end, I'm like, man, I be praying for justice, right? It's crazy. Like even in our shows and movies, we have to pray for justice because we know in real life we really get it. So it's very hard to watch those type of movies where it's just like there's a reflection of what we're seeing, even in cinema. So to me, it's very hard. So definitely one of those series where I wouldn't recommend someone to watch because it's what we see.
Okay, guys, so I gave this series a 3 out of 5. It was a really good series, but it was hard to watch. And then, of course, it hits home being black myself. So it's like I can't really give it a 5-star, but it was a good series. I feel like the series tries to make us feel bad for Jablonski because he didn't purposely kill Brenton. It was an accident. He was trying to do the right thing by saying like, oh, let's call it in. Oh, let me turn myself in. But he let his colleagues and supervisors and everybody else influence him by saying, oh, nobody's going to know what happened. Nobody's going to find him. And saying like, oh, you'll never know your child because his wife was pregnant at the time. But at the end of the day, he's a grown man. He can make his own choices, his own decisions. No matter what nobody else is saying, he should have just turned himself in when it first happened. The scene where KJ is on the hill looking at the scene where Brenton was crawling around, it was all bloody and stuff. That was very sad. The cops thought he was dead, but it turns out he was actually alive for hours in the snow trying to crawl around and find help. So it was just really sad seeing that big old circle full of blood. I think it was crazy when Brenton died and Jablonski's baby was born because they literally put those two scenes together and it shows one family losing a child and another family welcoming a child. So that was crazy. It was crazy when D'Angelo said that Brenton was a gangbanger who didn't evolve into a killer, making his loss a positive for the community, because I'm sure there are police officers who think like this today and they try to use that to justify killing black and brown people. Like, oh, I'm saving the community from a killer, so so it's okay to kill them. The dad, Isaiah, was a Christian, and he felt like him and his wife, like, basically should be leaning on God. What happened was God's will, and Latrice wasn't having it. She was like, where was God when my son was alone in the cold clinging to his life? I feel like that was such a realistic and powerful scene because in most black families, we have at least one Christian family member who is like that. And it wasn't right for him to tell her how she should grieve because we all grieve differently and that's okay. The dad seemed more focused on the church than his family, and it was revealed that he actually didn't even know much about his son. I like the part when Jablonski was arrested and he asked KJ, can he say goodbye to his newborn son? And she said no, because at the end of the day, he's a murderer and Brenton wasn't allowed any luxuries while he was laying in the snow. So she's like, no, you cannot see your son. I just love that part. And then at the end, of course, no real justice was served, which sucks, but it's also reality. D'Angelo ended up killing a witness who seen him covering up the crime and could have put them behind bars, but he ended up killing the girl. And like he said, Jablonski got sentenced to almost a year, which is really nothing because there are black people who get life in jail for less than what he did. And then the others got off scot-free. If it's hard for you to watch series like this, shows like this, movies like this, I don't recommend you watching it. However, I'm the type of person, I like seeing stuff like this just for awareness. Basically for awareness, I like to see stuff like this. I feel like it's a really good series and I give it a 3 out of 5.
Just like always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. You guys have a good one.